Original talk based on my research on jazz teaching, and it will be divided into three sections. First, we talk about what is the what is actually improvisation, what is jazz improvisation, and the second section we will zoom into it and go a bit deeper. And then the third section is my research finding, talking about what is the meaning of doing jazz improvisation for the local university students, and also on how those there are two modes that I try to argue here. One is the compliance mode, the other one is the more expressive mode. So how to make a good transitions for the students to move from merely complying to the expressive mode based on my own experience. So without further ado, we go into it, the topic. So this thing is already published as a chapter in the book. So my jazz lecture notes, the social meaning of the act of improvisation by Malaysian college students. This is published in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. So I would like to talk about one assumption that many local students may have when they come into jazz. One thing that local students have in their mind when they come into jazz, what is that? They are thinking that learning jazz, feeling as if you are coming into creating music ex nihilo. Creating music ex nihilo means creating music out of nothing. So very often we think jazz is something that you can create out of nothing, because you feel so free when you play jazz. You feel there's no notes, there's no arrangement, there's no rules, no right or wrong. So there are no notes, no arrangement, no textbook, no right or wrong. We are often told this way, but I argue that underneath this facade of nothingness lie the true rules of games, among which I would highlight the one that is prevalent in affecting local students' confidence in music learning and making. So the first part of this video is all about conformity to the algorithm. It's a way to talk about the compliance to jazz rule, how to make jazz jazz. So for a start, jazz is not created ex nihilo. So I mean, in Mandarin, sometimes we say, allow me to speak in Mandarin, we say即兴演奏嘛，爵士你就怎么样就怎么样咯，没有怎么样的，你喜欢怎么样就怎么样。But no, it's not 要怎么样就怎么样 no. Or in Malay we say saya boleh main sesuka hati. Tidak. No, jazz is not sesuka hati. You will be genuine, but you cannot be sesuka hati. If you play sesuka hati, it can be called improvisation, but it will never be jazz. Of course, we talk about jazz has a tradition, right? But now I want to go more into the philosophical part of it. So what do the literature say? Now we have here Michael Zack, written in 2000, who says jazz was described as a process of improvisation within a highly constrained structure and set of rules. And another author, Johnson Ladd, in 2002 put it that the connective problem for jazz musicians is to create a novel melody that fits the harmonic sequence and the metrical and rhythmic structure of the theme. So although you need to create a new melody, but you see there are requirements. There are harmonic sequence, there are metrical structure, there are rhythmic structure that you need to fit in. And another literature for Scott Simons, I will just go through all these points. in the literature that talk about jazz has rules. Yeah, Scott Simons in 2008 say improvisation is a reproduction. So it's not so much about just creation, but it's reproduction. Reproduction meaning you produce it again, what is already there in the past, right? A reproduction of music in forms such as reinterpretations of compositions, quotations, now very important words for jazz, quotations. I mean, in terms of academics, yeah, not the jazz musicians don't talk about quotations, but now we are a bit in the realm of research. Quotations of jazz melodies and stylistic emulations of other jazz artists. So you can see here interpretations, quotations, emulation. Emulation means imitations, right? So the spontaneous reproduction of music formed out of the fragments of previously produced music is a process inherent in jazz improvisation. In other words, jazz men or jazz people are the people who can instantly recall those things, that those music in the past instantly, and reproduce them and reapplied it into new situations. Paul Berliner, 1994, Thinking in Jazz, one of the classic ethnography, I would say, classic ethnography writing of jazz, which has turned into textbooks in the US. So it says jazz involves reworking. Reworking is number one. Number two, pre-composed material. Pre-composed, notice that. And design in relation to unanticipated ideas, conceived, shaped, and transformed under the special conditions of performance, thereby adding unique features to every creation. You can see this statement from many point of view, but look at the word reworking and pre-compose. So if today you say you want to come to play jazz and then you're very good with your instrumental skills, let's say you're very good in piano, and you are a very daring type of person, your listening is good, your feel is good, so I come and then I play. But could you really play anything you like? No. Jazz is still something about pre-composed material. There is a set of materials there that is pre-composed. There is rules, there is the traditions, there is the jazz language there. So if you think that you can improve in your jazz improvisation by just just to search inside you and just play, don't care, just like a bit like just throw it all out and then things will just get into their way. It will not happen. You will be just a neurotic person, but not anything, still very far from playing jazz. So Johnson Ladd, 2002, has a very he gives interesting terms, algorithm. He used the analogy of algorithm, obviously from computer science, to try to describe what happened in our cognitive process when we improvise. So in sum, musicians may learn the principles for improvising rhythmic phrases in three distinct systems: a set of prototypes, a set of principles for realizing them in various ways, and a system for timing the notes in a way that swings. Wow, it seems like talking like it's like artificial intelligence playing jazz like that. Yet the end result is probably a single set of unconscious procedures. So unconscious procedures in a neo-Lamarckian algorithm that requires no working memory for intermediate result. The contour determines the approximate choice of pitch, and the harmonic constraints of the concurrent chord narrow the choice down still further. The constraints and the range of the instrument sometimes reduce the choice to a single pitch, but more often there is a small set of possibilities, and the final choice from them is made arbitrary. So what it says here is just that we can actually explain all this, the choices that one have when you improvise. Let's say you have a 2-5-1, and when you play, there are many possibilities, but those are things actually you can calculate. In a way you can calculate, but it happened arbitrarily, they mean by chance. Whether by chance or not, that is the mystical part. Anyway, what is for sure is we spontaneously work it out. So one of the argument of Johnson Lard is that if computer do calculation, it needs a lot of temporary memory, right? Even when you browse internet, it involves a lot of storage of temporary files, like cache and all these things. But he thinks that, I think when the human brain take the process of improvisation, it is more like you're doing it in a spark of lightning speed, processing in that speed without using temporary memory. So without anything that come in between. Although there's a lot of things processed in the middle, it's not like save and then open, and then save another file, open, save another file, and then after a few stages, then you come up with the decision, what league do you play for that chord to. But it is actually just one through, going through all the decisions, just one through. Isn't that fantastic in terms of human ability? Maybe this is the ability that computer need to learn. So it is interesting that jazz improvisation is taken as algorithmic demands that do not require working memory to process intermediate result in order to be spontaneous. Indeed, once intermediate result is involved, by my personal experience, the flow is gone. It refers to the direct input from the long-term memory into the transducer without going through multi-stage procedures like the composition or like notated in notations. It's true, you can't be thinking too much when you improvise. If you start thinking, I do this and then I do that, the time passed already, and you will become, in Malay we say kaku. Kaku means, the flow was broken. Now, so much about jazz complying to the rules, and this human ability is really fascinating. Now, the last part of this first talk is Randall Grooves, 2006. This guy go into the Chinese literature to find analogy for jazz. Those who know about Chinese literature, you will come across this very famous cook called Bao Ding, who dissect a cow. Basically, he's a butcher. But by putting an analogy of mastery of jazz improvisation with the art of slaughtering the cow by Cook Ding or Bao Ding, part of the Taoist text, Grooves proposed that when one have fully mastered the art of improvisations against the environmental constraint, by persistent repetition of doing it, meaning practice, he or she could arise at the stage of full internalizations, which is identical to the untaught stage of Taoism as Bao Ding. So this cook Bao Ding is famous for, he know which part of the cow, which part is the organ, which part is the rib, and which part is the front, which one is the muscle, which one is the tendon. And when he dissect the cow, it looks really effortless, and he's not looking at it. So Randall is saying that jazz is likewise. It practiced so 100,000 millions of times that you already know what to do, as if it is very effortless. So that effortless stage of mastery is called untaught stage in Taoism, can eventually perform the task at ease without seeing and rethinking. So that is the first part of this talk. So much about jazz in complying as complying the rules. So if you take jazz, following all these literatures, jazz is really a kind of skills to master. And the key point is all about practice, 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 hard work, practice is all intelligent thing. Now stay tuned for the next episode, section 2, Beyond the Boundaries.